Welcome to Every Night is Game Night, where two busy dads get games to the table by any means necessary. Check us out, along with other great podcasts, at dicetowernetwork.com.
Every Night is Game Night, episode 112, Recent Hotness and Gaming with a Newborn Around. Yo, my peoples, what is up? Welcome back to the Every Night is Game Night podcast. I'm your host, Jason. Thank you so much for joining us. It's just me this time. Unfortunately, tried to get the episode with Anthony going. A little bit of a scheduling snafu, so it's just me. A lot happened. So Anthony lives in Pittsburgh, and there was some unfortunate events that happened in Pittsburgh that caused a little bit of upsetness in the city. Anthony was not affected, but, a lot going on there. Also, Halloween. When did Halloween become like a multiple day event where you have to take your kid to this thing and that thing and then trick-or-treating on Wednesday? It's crazy. We couldn't get it together, but that's okay. I am here. I got my microphone and I got some games to get to the table. So I am back from, quote-unquote back. You guys have been hearing me the whole time, but you heard a bunch of episodes that I recorded before I had a baby. If you follow me on social media, Twitter, Facebook, I've been posting pictures of my kid, gaming with my kid. Brand new one, he is Miles Francisco, born 7 pounds, 1 ounce. He is a bundle of joy, screaming. You may hear him upstairs screaming. My wife is jumping on the grenade so that I can come down here to the basement and record an episode for you guys. And also for me too. Oh my God, I could really use some gaming in my life. I'll get into that. I'm going to take this opportunity, since I'm here by myself, to get a little bit personal. I'll talk to you guys a little bit about, what's going on with me. All right, so we're going to get to a couple of things now. We have a lot to get to. The reviews for this episode are going to be My Little Scythe from Stonemaier Games, 1066 Tears of Many Mothers from Hollow Nothing Productions, and Dice Settlers from NSKN Games. I will let you know at the end of the episode why those particular games are the ones hitting my table. And then after that, I will talk a little bit about what I've been going through trying to get these games to the table with a crying, screaming, needy newborn around. But first, we are going to get to Liz. We have been getting to Liz the entire time. So many Kickstarters. I think the big ones, Cloudspire, the Spirit Island expansion, Street Masters expansion, those are still on by the time the episode will hit. Liz has been doing a real good job talking about other ones that you may be interested in beyond all the big stuff. So Liz, tell us about another Kickstarter that may slip beyond our radar.
Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and I'm here to encourage your Every Night is Game Night acquisition disorder. Today I want to talk about The Everrain from Grimlord Games. The Everrain is a cooperative game for 1 to 4 players, in which you explore a world that is drowning in a flood of never-ending rain. An ancient god who wants to destroy the world is awakening, and in this game you'll explore, find ancient relics, and ultimately search for the source of the Everrain so that you can stop it once and for all. The Everrain has a ton of miniatures, including some really cool looking ships. It also promises an unfolding storyline that will reveal itself as you play, which should pique the interest of those of you who like thematic games. Do be aware, however, that a pledge will run you about $111, and that's before shipping. Happy gaming!
All right. Thank you so much, Liz. We will hear more from Liz next week. She will hop on the episode. Next week's a treat. It's one of the biggest episodes that we're going to do. I'll let you guys know about that at the end of this one. Before I get to the reviews proper, I wanted to take a little bit of time, since this is my space, to get a little bit personal. I wanted to comment, my friends Peter Goosis and Michael Kelly over at Co-op Cast, hopefully are subscribed to that podcast as well. They were talking on a recent podcast about my intro, the intro I do for this podcast, the Yo My Peoples, What's Up? They messed it up. I don't know what they said. They're like, hey, my friends, or something. It was weird. So let me just get it out there. I know it's been about 100 episodes or more than that at this point, and I've been using the same intro. Let me talk a little bit about it. So let me take it apart. The Yo. So that is actually my homage to Lin-Manuel Miranda of Hamilton fame. He is a playwright, wrote Hamilton, wrote In the Heights. He is a fellow Puerto Rican, so very, very proud of that. And if you listen to his stuff, there's always yo, yo. You could see some hilarious spliced together memes of all the characters just saying yo to each other. I just thought that I got a kick out of that. So and it's kind of how I greet people in real life anyway. Not on the podcast, obviously, but especially if I'm with some friends back in Brooklyn, yo. So that's where that comes from. My peoples is actually something I got from a coworker I used to work with, this guy named Tyrone. He was a mentor, and I used to work in gang intervention deep in Brooklyn in the projects. Think of all those, when you think of Brooklyn and like the old school, like, okay, crime and drugs and gangs and, that's not Brooklyn. But it is some parts of Brooklyn, and that's where I was working. I used to work in gang intervention. And Tyrone used to get people together and talk about, yo, my peoples, and let's get this together. Talking to Bloods, talking to Crips, talking to persons from this project and this territory and this gang, and, all these little ways in which people divide one another, like really stupid. Not to say that, these kids are stupid, because all of us do it. You make these little silly divisions with one another. I don't care what sector of life we are. So he just kind of put that out there, my people, as a way to bring everything together, and when it comes to the gaming space, it's the solo gamers, it's the multiplayer gamers, it's the Euro guys, it's the co-op guys, it's just every kind of gamer. They're all my peoples. So I just want to put that out there. So that's where yo, my peoples, that is. So there's a lot of meaning behind that. It's not just me being silly. Hopefully you guys, Peter and Mike, you guys remember and give a proper intro next time. So okay, so I got that little bit out of the way. You guys want to hear about games, don't you? I'm always hearing about that. It's like, yeah, let's just get to the games. It's my favorite part. It's okay. I got 3 games to the table recently. These all have solo modes, and God bless solo gaming. I know I go back and forth in the pod, and I kind of give a little pushback when it's like, oh, you guys are solo game podcast, and I try to say a word for everybody. Really though, at our heart, I love the fact that I can get games to the table solo, especially now. I haven't gamed on a game night since my child was born in the middle of October. It is now, second week in November or so, and still haven't been able to get out to the game group, but I can still be in this hobby. I can still join in you guys, post, and, do my thing, and play new awesome games that are coming in solo on the table, and they're really, really fun. All these are really, really fun, and I'll talk about each of them in turn. So the first one I want to talk about is My Little Scythe from Stonemaier Games. I was going to go into what is perhaps my least favorite thing to do when I'm reviewing games, which is just describing them. I am trying really, really hard to be as succinct and short and all that kind of stuff as possible. I mean, I wish I could just get rid of it and not have to explain the game at all, just like beam it into your head or show you something so that I can get to like my thoughts and reviews. But it's a necessary evil, I think. I haven't figured out a good way to both, kind of skip past as much of that, but also give an in-depth, meaty review that kind of, talks about really, not just that I like it or what I felt about it, but like really get into the gist of it and give you an idea for how it feels and how it works and if it's the right fit for you. So I will continue to do game descriptions. However, I am going to outsource it for this episode. My Little Scythe is a game that Anthony talked about on Board Games Anonymous. So I'm just going to steal his game description. Too bad, Anthony. You can't stop me. So here is Anthony giving the description of My Little Scythe, and I'll be back to give you my thoughts.
All right, this is a game that when I first heard about it, I thought it was extremely cute, but I didn't necessarily know if it'd be a good fit in my house. But I'm glad that I gave it a shot anyways, because it was a huge hit with my kids, and that's My Little Scythe. So just a little backstory on this in case you haven't heard of this game. This is originally a fan-produced variant for Scythe. It was created by Hobie Chow and his daughter, Vienna Chow, and they took My Little Pony pieces and they made a kid's version of Scythe that is legitimately good for 6, 7, 8 years old. You can go on BGG, you can see the photos of their prototypes, and it's really cute. You got the little My Little Pony figures running around collecting apples. And it was actually so popular, it won the BGG Best Print and Play Award last year. So This was a very popular fan-created print-and-play game, so much so that Jamie Stegmaier picked it up and published it. So now we can all play My Little Scythe. Now, of course, because it's officially published, it does not have My Little Pony pieces in it. Instead, it has little chibi versions of all the animals from Scythe. So all the companions, the animal companions, are now the main characters in this game. There are 7 of them. The game plays up to 6, and each of them has 2 figures. You're going to be moving 2 figures around the map, and they are different, each of them. So I think one's male, one's female, and so you get like different sculpts there, which is pretty cool. The basic idea of the game, if you played Scythe, is fairly familiar. You are taking actions on your personal player board. Instead of the multiple actions available in Scythe, you only have 3 categories of actions. You can either move, you can make, or you can search. You're going to be picking up apples and gems from different places on the map. And it's kind of interesting how that works. When you search, you roll the dice, they show colors, and you have to place them on those colored hexes on the board. Maybe they're near you, maybe they're not, but it just helps to populate the board for everybody. If you put it on a space for somebody else, you get friendship points, which in the end is one of the victory conditions. You can also spend them for other things. There are also these little exploration quest tokens. These allow you to do all sorts of stuff. There's usually like a good action where you'll spend some resources and something good happens to you. There's a mean action where you hurt somebody else, but it's never that mean, but a little bit. Maybe you're stealing an apple or 2, but you lose friendship. And then there's always the third option of, I don't want to complete this quest, just give me an apple or just give me a friendship. Victory conditions are very similar to Scythe. You have 8 different categories at the top of the board. And each of these, you're going to place trophies there when you get to, max out whatever you need to do. So one of them is deliver 4 apples to the castle. Another one is to complete 2 quests. Another one is to beat somebody in combat. And combat in this game is that you are having a pie fight. So you'll be using pies as your aggression meter. You have a pie meter that you're going to be spending to attack each other. And once somebody's gotten all 4 of their trophies out, so it's only 4 in this, keeping it short, the game end triggers. Everybody else gets one more turn, and you see what happens. There are a bunch of tiebreakers after that. I think the first tiebreaker is friendship. So basically, if you manage to get to the end and you're tied, and you have been the best player without being mean to anybody, you win. So I like that. It's a nice lesson for my kids, because my son, anytime those cards came up, he's like, yeah, I'm doing the mean one. I'm like, I haven't read it yet. He's like, yeah, I'm doing the mean one. I don't care what it is. Give me your stuff. I'm going to attack you. And he lost because of the tiebreaker. So maybe he learned something.
I wish, Anthony, and I pray and I hope that one day my children will be old enough where I can play games like My Little Scythe. I'm so looking forward to that. It is why I'm having children. I can't. Yes, I joke about that all the time with my wife, but yes, this is a big part of it. I would love to be able to do a family game night like that, and this game is really good for that. Like, really, really good for that. I really enjoyed my plays of My Little Scythe. If you want to know what Anthony thought, I'm just going to go ahead and refer you over to Board Gamers Anonymous. Go to the website, boardgamersanonymous.com, or subscribe to the feed. Hear Anthony's full thoughts about it. For me, I kind of break it up into kind of 2 things. So, first of all, is the game good? And the game is very good. The game is very, so good. Like, as a pure design achievement, I played a bunch of times, like 4, 5, 6 times, and I didn't sense any, like, brokenness or any, like, things that felt wrong. Scythe is a very well-designed game. You may not like it, but it's very well-designed. This carries that over. So, there's very little, like, kind of that feels wrong about the game. Especially, I don't think Anthony mentioned either in the solo mode. So I played with an Automa, and the Automa is awesome. The Automa is as good as the Scythe Automa. Some people have a problem with that because it gets random and whatever. It's fine with me. I played a whole campaign with Rise of Fenris with the Automa, and I'm happy to play My Little Scythe with the Automa, and it works really, really well. So just as a design thing, I think this is a great game. Will you like it? So when it comes to solo gaming, I'm going to focus on the solo gaming aspect for a second of it. You might want something a little more strategic. Like I see a lot of posts for children's level games. in the Solo Gamers Guild, and they ask, okay, is this good for me? Is this good? Am I going to enjoy this? Like, they'll post about Ghost Fighting Treasure Hunters, or they post about Stuff Fables or whatever. It's like, okay, is this good for me as a solo gamer who wants to just sit there and enjoy a time? Like, it's still really simple. Like, and it still has, has dice, so it has that randomness. I've heard a lot of reviews and read a lot of reviews, on BGG talking about how, because there's only those 3 actions and you can't repeat the action, so really you only have 2 choices in a particular turn. And sometimes that can feel really frustrating because, movement is pretty important in this game. It's to pick up and deliver, after all, for the most part. So you're just dying to move. You might not be able to move all the time. Are the choices satisfying? Sometimes, a lot of times the choice is pretty obvious. There's not a lot of resources on the board. Okay, let me make some resources. Okay, now I'm okay. Now I can sneak a make in here and all that kind of stuff. I found as an adult, those choices are pretty obvious. Now, from a kid's perspective, the choices are pretty amazing. Like, they did a really good job of isolating, how many choices does a kid have to handle? 2 is basically enough. And, just to get them to wrap their minds around, what an introduction to a game like this. So, having 2 choices is good, And, so as an adult, it may not be the most gripping experience. It may actually be a little bit, the choices might seem obvious to an adult. But there's a couple times where you're making decisions, and from a kid's perspective, there's a lot. They are exploring. It's very inviting. I really, really enjoyed that for this part. So, geez, I mean, I'm going on and on. I really, really dig this game. It has a permanent place in my collection as far as I'm concerned. Just sneaks right in there. It is everything I want out of a kid's game. It is as close as I'm going to get to like a satisfying kid's game that I've experienced. So I knock a lot of kids' games for being way too simple. When we review them on the pod, like this one just edges towards that perfect blend of like being satisfying for an adult and a kid. Doesn't quite get there, but it's super close, and it's close enough, and I can't wait to play it with my kid. That's My Little Scythe. All right, second game I'm going to talk about is 1066 Tears to Many Mothers. This one was designed by Tristan Hall, published by Hall & Nothing Productions. As you guys know, Tristan is a friend of the pod. He's contributed clips, and I'm always happy to talk about Tristan's game. He's a huge solo gaming fan of the gaming community. He's very active in there, so was totally pumped to get this game in the mail and see what was going on. So, 1066 Tears to Many Mothers is an asymmetric 2-player head-to-head card game. The theme is the year 1066. England is embroiled in a war of succession between the Anglo-Saxon king Harold Godwin's son. Yeah, I think that's right. And I believe it's his brother, the person who would come to be known as William the Conqueror, and his French/Norman allies. So the war, kind of played out over multiple theaters, but it culminates in the Battle of Hastings, which is where William the Conqueror, that'd be a terrible nickname if he lost. So he won, where he won and eventually consolidated power from there. I don't know anything. Like I said at the top of the show, I'm a Puerto Rican guy. I'm living in America. I got nothing when it comes to this English history stuff, but I definitely appreciated that the game went to a lot of lengths to kind of invite me in. The art here is just amazing. It's gorgeous. If you No Gloom at Killforth, it's kind of at that level of card quality. Like the cards are really, awesome. Sturdy cards. There's a very nice sheen to them. The art pops off of the cards. Just everything about the production of this game is just amazing. So 1066. And the graphic design was just like the whole presentation of the game just invites you into this world of what is essentially a pitched battle. So, if you guys know what a pitched battle is just, that's the big, massive armies clashing against each other. There's no fancy tactics. There's no, skirmishing or whatever. It's like, all right, we're just throwing down, and it's like a big open field, and we're just going to, throw meat at each other. And, thousands and thousands of people die in these things. And the rulebook kind of gives a nod to that. It's like, okay, whenever you sacrifice a card, that represents hundreds of soldiers dying. It's like, what? All right, then. Okay, so that's kind of the headspace and the theme of the game. What about gameplay? All right, so as far as gameplay goes, I wouldn't say that there's anything totally new here. if you've played games like Pixel Tactics or Summoner Wars, you're in for the same kind of experience. Well, not the same, but similar in the sense of it's this game where you're going to play cards to, in this case, a 3x3 grid, 9 spaces, and those cards are your units, and you're going to be, kind of flooding the field with units, and those units are going to be interacting with the board and attacking your other player and on and so forth. And so will your opponent, so it's kind of this straight-up two-player back and forth. Your army is a deck of 76 cards, whether you play the Anglo-Saxons or the Normans. And on your turn, you're going to be playing cards, and you're going to be, and the way you play cards, they have a resource cost, and you discard other cards. So you have to make that decision of which of my cards is worth playing, and which of my cards is grist for the mill. That I can just toss them and get my stuff out. So then, as you're playing your cards, you're moving through this first phase. So the first phase of the game, you're not actually kind of making your way towards victory unless you want to defeat the leader. A lot of games like this, the object is to defeat the leader. I mean, that's kind of like playing. Summoner Wars is like that. A couple of these games. So here you can go for that, but there's also kind of this attrition element where you go for these separate objective cards, and the objective cards basically, at the end of every turn, you're going to see how many ready units you have, and do a bunch of damage. Or the game has two things: damage and zeal. So they work kind of the same. They're just kind of two different denominators for the same thing. You're trying to complete these objectives, and once you complete enough objectives, you quote-unquote arrive at the Battle of Hastings, and that's where the second part of the game comes, which is actually trying to establish dominance on the board, which the board represents as these 3 wedge cards, which is right in between the two armies. Picture 2 massive armies, and there's like a line right between them, and whoever can command that line, that ground, is going to win the game. So that's kind of the 2 phases of the game. But for the most part, they work the same way. You're playing your cards onto your field, and hopefully you have the better army, and you could do more damage, or you could get out the leader, or, do all that kind of stuff. 2 things make this distinct, right? The first thing is the objectives. So the objectives themselves are not that exciting. It's just like do a bunch of damage and then you can move on to the next thing. They're called certain stuff like, other different battles that led up to the Battle of Hastings. But that's not the exciting part. Not the actual doing the damage. The exciting part is the tension that it creates while you're playing the mid rounds, where you have to decide which of your units are you going to devote to the objective, and which of your units you're going to devote to attacking the enemy, because you can't just go to the objectives. You have to actually give some resistance to your opponent, so you have to tap some cards. Like, yes, I said it, Wizard of the Coast, come at me, bro, tapping. The rule said tire the cards or exhaust the cards, please. That is so dumb. How can you copyright that? Why can't we just say tap all over the people? This just makes things so much easier. So I'm going to say tap the cards, darn it. So you're going to tap the cards, and that is those are attacks that go against the enemy, but the objectives, you need ready cards, untapped cards. So that is a decision you make every single round. What do I devote to this one thing, or what do I devote to the other thing? It's kind of like Lord of the Rings, LCG, if that makes sense. A lot of solo games have played Lord of the Rings, where you have units, and what do you do with those units? How many units do you keep in reserve so that they can defend against monsters? How many units do you want to devote to quote-unquote going on the quest or completing the objective? That's kind of the core of what made that game good, and I could tell Tristan either imported it from that game or maybe another game to kind of make this, a little bit different than just your standard head-to-head battle. So that's one thing that I found really good. In fact, that's the best thing. That is the best thing. Turn by turn, every single turn, I found that I was making interesting decisions. Hand management. How many troops do I keep? How many troops do I or how many cards do I just discard to get these big troops out? Do I want a bunch of little guys? Do I want like one, or 2 big things that'll just help me do a lot? Really, really cool throughout. I did not encounter any dead turns, especially even at the beginning. It started off pretty cool. The second thing is kind of related. It's just the overall vibe of the game. I talked about this game being based on a pitched battle. Like, it feels like that. And, so all these games kind of have a different motif. So, like, Summoner Wars, you have, like, there's a lot more space. There's like a skirmishing and attacking. You're moving the cards. You have like obstacles. You can kind of hide behind the obstacles. Very dynamic play. Mage Wars Arena, kind of the same way. A game like Pixel Tactics is more about the combos. So, this guy and this guy and this guy will buff this guy, and this guy interacts with this guy, and then boom, some big old shot. So you're not getting that here. What you're doing here, you're summoning creatures, and they're kind of born to die. What you're doing is you're maximizing the death of your cards, and you want to have them die the most effectively, which is exactly the mindset that a general has in this kind of battle, which is, these troops are going to die. These thousands of troops are going to die. I have to protect my archers. So like that, that group is going to be meat. I just need them to do as much as they can before they die. So you have 76 cards, and you're going to play a lot of them, and they're going to come in and they're going to disappear. And it's this kind of suffocating war of attrition thing, but not in a bad way. Like I say that, it's like, oh, this card game is suffocating. No. That's not what I mean. I mean that it's just like a very awesome tension, really, really cool. That, you're not moving around, you don't feel like a big superhero here. You're really just, you're trying to last as long as possible. And then once you get to the end, which most of the games that I've played have been pretty close, then boom, everything is going to be, then you feel really, really good about what you're able to do. The asymmetry, the game calls itself asymmetrical. Not so much. There's a couple of cards on both sides. So like the Normans were, they had like this kind of lockstep shield type, at least in real life. So you have a couple of cards that do shield walls, and they're more effective kind of in the first row, where the Anglo-Saxons, more cavalry units, they have cards that are more effective in the back row, but that's not that many. Most of the cards kind of do similar stuff, like, okay, this card gives a resource, this card gives zeal, and they're kind of exact opposite of each other. So asymmetrical, I guess it's enough to call it that, but that's not the selling point. Believe me, that is not the selling point. So I play this solo. I would not have been able to play this game if I didn't have solo in my life. The solo is a bot. It's just basically the deck of cards of the opponent, and there's rules as to playing, just turning over a card and playing them. So you're going to take a turn, you're going to either play a card or do an action on one of your cards, and then it's going to go, and then it's going to flip a card, and there's this kind of scaling resource system. So the further the game goes along, the more resources the enemy is going to have to summon creatures. Sorry about that. Soldiers. At the beginning of the game, they have 0 resources, so they're summoning the same 0 things, and there's only 4 0 cards, so I kept on seeing the same 0 cards over and over again, especially if you're able to deny the bot extra resources. So it just kind of like does that. And then once the game progresses, they're going to get 3, 4, 5 resources. They could just basically summon whatever they want. They blend, they do a thing. It's effective. I learned the game, and I enjoyed my part of the game. What the bot did was let me explore and enjoy my part of the game. I didn't think it was great. I'm sorry. Sorry to say that. So I just felt like, especially at the beginning, the fact that there's so few 0-cost cards, and it just takes so long for the bot to get going. And, in a deck of 76 cards, there's only 4, so you have to take the 0 cards out, basically. And then the next time you get the 1 resource, you have to flip. A lot of deck milling in the beginning of the game. That's not my idea of fun in a solo bot. I want my solo bot turns to be really fast and really effective, like a die roll or a card pull. And that's it. So, and it doesn't sound like much. Okay, just mill through the deck to get to the card that the enemy is going to play. You do that every single turn, guys. Every single turn. So I didn't really jibe with that. That wasn't a thing that I found very exciting. Although you might. So there's a lot of people, I saw some reviews of before there was even a solo mode here, where they played 2-sided. This is a war game, so that's a thing among war gamers, is to play games 2-sided. This is way simpler. You can actually do it. Playing 2-sided might even be preferable to playing with the bot. I understand why the bot is there, and I'm thankful that Tristan really took a crack at it. Because it let me enjoy it, but it's not something I'm going to come back to. It's definitely something where I learned the game, now I'm ready to play it with somebody else. And I think I'm kind of done with the bot. But, Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad it was there. It opened up a really cool game. I really enjoyed this. I like the vibe of it. I like the art of it. I mean, I mentioned a whole bunch of stuff, so I won't go too much longer. But that is definitely one I enjoyed as well. That is 1066, Tears Too Many Mothers. All right, so the last I'm going to talk about is Dice Settlers. Dice Settlers is... Oh, wait a minute. I think Anthony has also covered this one on an episode of BGA. Anthony, you tell him who designed Dice Settlers.
Designed by David Turczi. And David is, if his name sounds familiar, he has worked on a lot of other games we talked about, like Anachrony, the upcoming Cerebria. He does solo modes for a lot of games, including another game I'll talk about in a week or two, Teotihuacan. So he is in a lot of stuff right now. Fantastic mind for solo gaming, and this is one of his solo designs that he's done by himself. So no co-designer on this game. The idea of this game is that you are bag building with dice. So it's, again, similar to a deck builder or a bag builder like Orleans, where you will be getting new dice throughout the game. They go into your bag, you draw a certain number on your turn, you roll them, you do stuff with them. That's it. And the real magic of the game is trying to, figure out which kind of dice you want, because there are several different types of dice to choose from, and each of them have different faces. Your player mat will show you what all the faces are, so you can make decisions about which dice you want. The other tricky thing about the game is kind of the race for different victory paths. Everybody can have a different strategy. One person could be going for dice, another person could be going for exploration, another person could be going to get their houses out, which gets you a lot of points at the end. A lot of different stuff you can kind of try to manipulate. And the dice manipulation itself is really cool. So I'm not going to list every face of the die. I'm not going to list every action here because there's just a lot of stuff you can do. But suffice it to say, there are resource icons on the dice, and there are hats. And the hats let you re-roll or set your dice to a specific face that you want. The resource icons, you can either use those in a resource action to get resources, which you can use for other various things, or you can spend that die and draw more dice from your bag, or set a die to whatever face you want. So you might only be able to draw 4 or 5 dice on your turn, but if you roll a bunch of resources, and you can control this by getting the dice that have resources on them, you can keep pulling dice out of your bag until you run out of those, and then kind of figure out how you want to use them. The key to all this, though, is that you only get 2 actions per round. So if you have 5 different actions worth of dice up there, you only get to pick 2 of them. So it doesn't really help you have a ton of dice, except that you now have options. It gives you a bunch more options, especially if there's rerolls and resetting and all sorts of stuff you can do. The randomness is really, really offset by this, but it's still there. So there will still be rounds where you roll like 8 dice and none of them do what you want them to do. And that sucks, but that's a dice game. So if you don't like that, it's a dice game. It's got dice in the name, and you should know that. The other really cool part of the game is kind of the area control mechanisms of it. So you are building out a map, and you have tents that you're going to put out. And if you have enough tents on a tile, you can take a free action and replace them with a house. Houses can never be removed. They're permanent control. There's only 1 house per tile. And if you get all 5 houses out, you not only get a ton of points, but it's an end game trigger.
And there's, a lot more ways to end the game. This, like Anthony was saying during the description, this game is very open-ended. There's a lot of paths to victory. There's a lot of ways to end the game. There's just a lot here. You're sensing a theme. 3 games, 3 winners so far. In terms of Dice Settlers, I think if you were reminded of Roll for the Galaxy while Anthony did his description, that's kind of where you're at. So Roll for the Galaxy is a little bit different in that it's more about, you're building your dice engine and you're kind of following other people and leeching off their actions. Here it's more of a directly competitive experience, where Roll for the Galaxy is multiplayer solitaire-ish with some soft interactive elements. But that's what it is. Like, you're rolling lots and lots of dice. You're trying to build your dice pool to angle it a certain way. What I like about both these games is you have a main strategy that you want to go for. Let's say you're going for, trading a lot of resources. You just want to trade. Score points. You might get the rolls you need, which is great, and you just score that way. But you might not. Like Anthony said during the description, sometimes you roll and you get hosed. It's a dice game. And the key to victory in a dice game is to have your main strat nailed, but have enough capacity in the other ways to score where you can do something with a disadvantageous roll down the line. So like, and this game does a really good job of that. This game always gives you something to do, even if you just get complete and utterly annihilated by the dice in terms of your main strat. You just, oh wow, okay, I'm just going to get these 3 woods off of this roll and I'm going to score off of that. That's 6 VP. It wasn't the 10 VP you were going to get on your optimal action, but it's still 6, and it's better than the 3 that the other person got because they weren't as effective as doing their plan B and their plan C and all that kind of stuff. I really dig that. That's really awesome to me. Issues with the game, it's a dry game. There's zero theme. There's nothing. It's dice settlers, but the art is just really bland. It says a lot, though. It says a lot. You know, I'm a theme guy. It says a lot that I don't care. In this particular case, the mechanisms are so good, I don't care. It's a David Turczi game, and what I'm finding with David Turczi, I've played a lot of his games right now. You know, mentioned Anachrony, mentioned Days of Ire. They're so polished. Like, they're probably more polished than a lot of designers out there. There's no rough edges. Like, you can just tell if you kind of look under the hood. It's almost like in a car, like a really nice car. You know, and all the little parts that kind of come together. And, you know, why does the tent placing work this way? Why does, why do I need 2 dice in order to re-roll and that kind of stuff? And you play it and it's like, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. It's so smooth. I'll take that. I will absolutely take that because it's such a fun time. I don't need theme. I know that Z didn't like this game from Dice Tower because it was so dry, you know. I don't mind. You can be as dry as you can be as long as it plays really, really well. Has played really well, and this one actually meets that bar. There is a solo mode. It's a David Turczi game, so of course there's a solo mode. Funny, we had him on the show to talk about Cerebria, and he talked about how he's not a solo gamer himself, but he recognizes that power of the audience, lots of sales, lots of passion. So he's like, all right, I'm just going to do this for you guys and see what happens. So definitely appreciate that. So this solo mode is called the Diceoneer. It's like Pioneer, but Diceoneer. It's not that many components. It's basically a hex and a die. And so the hex has 6 actions on it, and then the bot has its own dice. You're gonna roll the dice at the beginning of the turn, and you're gonna put the dice on the different edges of the hex. So representing, these are potential actions that the bot can take. And then as you take your turn, you do whatever you do, and then you're going to roll a 6-sided die, which basically goes from 1 to 4. Just kind of plays with the number distribution a little bit. And it's going to take actions depending on what you rolled in that beginning phase. So it's kind of like cock and load. Like, okay, I'm going to prepare a bunch of actions by rolling for the bot, and then you're going to figure out with another dice roll what it does. It's a high barrier of entry, It's... usually with a good solo mode, the rules book is like a page, maybe 2. This one, the solo mode is like, I don't know, it's like half the book, which is pretty interesting. So I had a little bit of a time learning the bot. It takes a little while to kind of grok everything. I almost got scared off by it, especially you roll every turn. So like I do my action, now I roll for the bot. I do my action, now I roll for the bot. I just finished talking about how in Tears of Many Mothers, I don't like when there's a lot of admin in my solo bots. So because of the lots to learn and because of the constant upkeep, I was a little bit afraid. But I'm sitting here and I'm in my basement, I'm looking at the game, and I want to play it again. And, I want to just take it out and just, I didn't mind because it was that intuitive. Like, I once I thought about it, I'm like, oh, this is not an automa. This is not a completely random experience. I know what the bot is likely going to do because I've prepped the actions already with that initial custom dice roll. So I can plan my turns around what the bot is likely to do. The bot might raid my stuff because it has a whole bunch of dice on raid, so I better, clear out and make sure he doesn't have a lot to raid. Or he doesn't have a raid, and I'm like, all right, now it's time to just, settle. It affects me. It affects the way I play, which in a normal solo game, you're just playing the game. You're not playing the bot. Here, you're playing the bot. You're playing a simulated character, which is, I love that David Turczi was able to pull that off. Lot to learn. It may not be for you because it is a little bit admin-y, but the way it replicates an opponent, like with a brain, it isn't just like a ball of random. I have trounced it. It has trounced me. So there's definite challenge there. Kudos, man. This is really good. So I'm going to give a recommendation to Dice Settlers. It is for me. It is a game that is for me. It might not be for you. If you have Roll for the Galaxy and that's like it, if you're cool with that, then I don't know if both need to be in your collection. But for me, they need to be in mine. I like clever dice games. I like shorter dice games. I like Euros that are really smooth and don't overstay their welcome. This is and Dice Settlers hits all those things. So I'm gonna give a really positive recommendation. So that was Dice Settlers by our friend David Turczi. Keep it coming, man. You are doing a great job. All right, guys and gals, for the last part of this episode, I'm actually away from the basement. I am driving. I am on my way to Walmart to pick up some essentials. If you are international, Walmart is our big mega superstore with all sorts of everything you can buy. I have my 3-year-old with me. I am giving my wife a break, which, if you know parenting, you get the breaks anywhere that you can. So I'm distracting my 3-year-old as much as possible. Hey, Simone, you want to be on the podcast?
Huh.
Do you want to be on the podcast, Simone?
Yeah.
Simone, say podcast.
Podcast.
There you go. I hope you guys heard that. That's my daughter. Anyway, so wanted to give some comments about gaming with a newborn around. So the reason I talked about the 3 games in particular that I talked about today was that I got them as review copies while we were, in labor and having the first couple weeks and everything. It was unbelievable. I mean, I know there's a whole thing about review copies. I know I'm very, very blessed. I'm very blessed that Kuba from NSKN, that Jamie from Stonemaier, and that Tristan from Hall or Nothing see enough value in my podcast that they'll send copies over and I can play. And, I'm really thankful, not just because of the recognition, but because of the American healthcare system. Screw you, American healthcare system. Oh my goodness. I just had a baby, and because of the way deductibles and all that stuff works, you're basically paying out of pocket to have a child, which is crazy. I thought you wanted more kids, not less. So, every penny counts and everything. So, again, very, very thankful for that. Hopefully, do right by you guys and also do right by the fans. You guys, you can kind of trust my opinions, and I give you as honest opinion as I can. Thank you for that. But in terms of just like the actual mechanics of having a newborn around, there's a couple things I want to talk about. First, I have not gamed since mid-October, and I do not plan on returning to the table for another couple of weeks. I may not actually get out until PAX, which is at the end of November. It is early November as I record this. So, yeah, you can go either way with this. A lot of people have different opinions on what to do in that situation. I'm coming at it from a child development perspective where I know how critically important those first couple of weeks are. From a psychodynamic perspective, what a newborn is doing, they're not just like crying, eating. What they're doing is they're trying to build trust with the world. They're trying to, they spent 9 months in the womb, and now they're out in this big scary place, and all they want to do is know that they're in a safe place. And I'm a firm believer that in creating family environment that promotes that. So, obviously mom is going to have a lot to do with it. So I'm particularly speaking to the guys. There tends to be more gamer guys than gals, at least at this point. Don't just rush back to the game group. If your wife is saying that they need a little bit of time to be part of, or that you need to be around, even if you're not really doing anything in particular. Guys are very terrible at, okay, well, there's nothing to do, so why am I here? Just being around really helps. So my wife kind of expressed that to me, and it makes total sense. Like, it may be nothing going on. at that point, but it just helps them to know that if something does happen, and something could happen at any moment, that you're around. So attached to that, I preached the praises of solo gaming at the beginning of the podcast. I gotta go over it again. My solo gaming has just been really helpful in this respect. It's actually a lot better than a video game. A lot of my friends, people online are playing Red Dead 2 right now. Those can be really addictive. And you can, let's say you get into a game like that and all of a sudden something comes up and, someone's screaming, either your mom or your wife or whoever else, like, hey, I need help. And it's like, no, I'm in the middle of something. It's just the thing, man. It's a small thing. It's kind of, I hesitate to kind of talk about it because it's a little bit comical, but every little way in which you can kind of remove friction from the house and just have things be good and be there, I'm all for that, just because I'm very aware of how developmental the kid just needs that, that first couple of weeks to be really, really good. So, in terms of the question of when can I go back to my game group, give it some time, man, at least 3 weeks. I advocate for more. And obviously that depends on what kind of family support you have. The other side of that is what can a game group do? A game group, let's say they have somebody that they're playing with, but they drop off because someone had a kid. There's actually a lot that you can do. Like, it may not seem like a lot. But, speaking from a personal perspective, also speaking from the perspective of a lot of people, my wife follows a couple of blogs and they talk about this as like mommy blogs. Like, having a newborn it can be very lonely, especially after that first like initial rush of family. Everybody's coming, you gotta take a picture, you gotta give the weight and the height, and you gotta take pictures of their feet, which is weird. I don't know why my family does that. They love feet. Baby feet, but maybe somebody can explain that to me out there. But after that, it could be like really isolating. Like, you just spend day after day after day after day in monotony. I mean, look what I'm doing now. I'm driving to Walmart. That's like this big old excursion for me right now. Actually, I'm supposed to be turning into my house right now, but my wife's still sleeping, so I'm going to keep on driving. Simone, you're okay back there, right? Hey, Simone, are you okay back there?
Yeah.
I think she said yeah. Hopefully my mic picked that one up. She's very shy when it comes to the microphone. Okay, so we're going to keep on driving. What can you do as a game group for your person that's just had a baby? Like I was saying a lot. You might not be able to do much directly. You can't be handling other people's kids. But like I'm doing now, I just took the older kid and I'm just going. That is a blessing in and of itself. If you have multiple kids in the house and the baby needs so much attention, the older kid needs attention too. So if you have the capacity, not everybody has this, but you have the capacity to kind of take care of that older kid for a little while, you are blessed. You are a godsend. So that's a helpful thing. But even if you can't do that, there's so much you can do. Life goes on, man. Dinners have to be cooked. Stuff has to be bought. I recently discovered the service called mealtrain.com. We set up a little calendar so people have signed up, are delivering meals. And, I've been eating the same chicken chili thing for 4 days, but it's amazing because I didn't cook it and it's still good. And we're not draining our finances on fast food or doing whatever. So that's, whatever you could do in terms of contributing diapers, it all helps. It all helps. And, hey, look, if you guys have the capacity, like say you have a bigger house and you just want to come over for a little bit and play smaller games, be really flexible in terms of, and creative in terms of what you can do. A lot of groups get locked into this kind of idea of the game night, where you come, it's 3 or 4 hours, you play certain types of games, and that's it. You can really kind of blow that out, and be really multiple with it, where, I have this new game, I have this really small card game, come over and, play something just to kind of be a distraction. There's so many ways to be creative with defining what is a game group and, going out there and helping that family. Because those 6 weeks, man, and if you guys don't know, 6 weeks is horrible. 6 weeks is the worst. It was with my first daughter. I read a lot of stuff, a lot of kids. The sleep is terrible. They're gas. Oh, you just want to burp them like crazy, and you just slam in the back of their back so they can get that burp out, make them stop crying. So yeah, that's kind of the deal. It's really funny that I'm just like driving and podcasting right now. But Simone, you're okay back there, right? She said she's okay. Anyway, yeah, so those are my, little tips, things to remember for gaming with newborns. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Hope you enjoyed the reviews. Thank you again for some excellent gaming companies that were able to bring over some games. I will, like I said before, I'm going to be headed to PAX. I'll be picking up some more stuff. Hopefully, buying some of the stuff that was released at Essen. Looking forward to that. And, that's basically it. If you wanted to, keep in touch with the pod. Oh, wait a minute. Get out of here. I'm going into the outro and I have some more thank yous. Some listeners have actually, contributed to the show in a special way. I wanted to give a special shout out to Tommy Ray. He really hooked me up with something that was really great of him. I owe you some War Games, man. I hope that Tears to Many Mothers 1066 was a little bit of a slice of some wargaming, and then at the end of the year, I'm still working on getting somebody who can cover the year in solo War Games, when we do some of our year-end coverage. So good to you, man. A couple other listeners, shouting you guys out. I love you all. Anybody who responds, anybody who interacts on the Every Night's Game Night Facebook group, like, Connor is good for a post every once in a while, very active. Lyle, so many listeners. I'm really happy. Anybody that downloads a podcast is really cool. Like I said, everything helps. So I got my thank yous. I think I got covered everything. So I will be at PAX. Please, it's a couple weeks out. We're gonna mention a couple times before we leave. Hit me up and let's play a game, and hopefully I will be a little bit more coherent. I'm so rambly right now. I'm on like 2 hours of sleep. It's crazy. But anyway, yeah, so that's the episode. If you want to get in touch with us, ENGN_podcast on the Twitter, Every Night is Game Night Facebook group, everynightysgamenight.com is our website. If you want to help the show out in a more direct way, please give us a rating. 5 stars, however many stars you think we deserve on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, all that good stuff. That's basically it. Next episode is going to be our awesome episode. We love it. It's our biggest episode every year. It is the commentary on the top 100 solo games over on BGG, the One Player Guild. Kevin Erskine puts that together. Liz Davison will be joining Anthony and I, so we're going to have a big pod. It's going to be great. And then we're going to PAX. So we have lots of good stuff lined up for you. So that is it. As Anthony would say, let's go ahead and grab a solo game off of that shelf, and let's make every night a game night. Hey, Simone, you want to say bye-bye to the peoples?
Bye-bye.
Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.